Oh.
Go. I'll be the rail. Kind of steep. Just in case. Yeah. Down here is more unstable.
Utilize that tree.
So today we're gonna find out. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a little step.
There's a reason they did that. It would have been much more impressive had the ranchers not had the valley and then the Navy not had the valley and then the ranchers continue under the Navy, because the rocks would have been much more linear. The cattle walking on the wall knocked over some of the rocks, and so you lose some of the linear facets. But that happened every place that ranching occurred where there was hail and house sites and those things. Because the cattle, they like climb more, so if you get goats, goats love to climb even more.
Uncle William, you went back to that other place where the Pohaku, where that had those circular columns, right? Did you go back there that time?
I did, and that deserves a lot more
Exploration.
more study.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
Up here?
It's
up here?
Back up
Up
here
that side.
somewhere.
And there's one more. There's one more heiau near the below the Norfolk Island pines that Albert Silva took me to. So it's not recorded, but definitely that's a heiau. But this site is not a heiau. It's more like a habitation complex. So the really impressive thing is that there's probably like a dozen or more lua pits that they set. So it's not, these are pits that they dug out of the ground. They excavated, then they set the stones inside.
And water collection?
They're probably taller than us.
yeah.
Like if we climb down in them, they'd be taller than us, and they're full.
So
they're still fully packed.
got me thinking, what were those pits used for, right?
Water.
You think water collection and
Possibly. When you go up further, I mean, we didn't get to go all the way to the top. So every 20, 30 feet you go, you can see there's terracing. So control water. You have the flow of water back and forth, usually for planting. That's seasonal, maybe to deal with flash flooding. Yeah? You see, if you ever go to Kalaupapa, ask to see if you can go to the pali in the back. The churches are nice, all that stuff is nice, but what is more impressive is the same type of architecture where the pali is steep, so catching all of that water that comes off the pali and distributing it in an even, controlled fashion to make the most use of that water. So there's terraces everywhere in the forest in the backyard.
this Pohaku.
Right?
This Pohaku.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Eh? Maybe just get a good sheet. I don't think it was used for sharpening because we wouldn't have all our pickles inside there. And they would use a more dense basalt for shaping. But it's still beautiful. I mean, nature kind of cool. Yeah? So you can see how they made use of also the stones that were nearby. I thought those worked smart. They didn't work hard.
Right.
If they had something close by that they could incorporate into the walls, they would
They'll figure it out.
Yeah. what's
Oh,
what
no.
now?
So this direct observation Makolela Hawaii is called Ikemaka.
Ikemaka.
Right.
So
Right.
the
There are times though
observation in the present we've been able to see with our own two eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are times like Kala, right, on Kauai.
Yeah.
They had a huge labor force that brought walked from all over
over.
the plains, right? So there were lines and lines for possibly a mile or 2 miles. Everybody passed stones to build that structure.
Mm.
It's likely this structure was a smaller structure when the history of this particular valley was more like what do they call it? Familial control, where you had extended families that settled here and were in charge. And then as you get into the 1400s, population grows, you get more stratified society, you have different classes of chiefs. And now you have, because population grew, you have a much larger workforce that you can persuade to come and kokua, yeah? So then you can take what is in place and make it larger to reflect the status of the alii, right? And right. So the mana that
Then
chief
chief.
Yeah.
has, or the area has.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of Oahu, you know, it probably started out with small groups of families settling, then, you know, 700, 800,000 AD.
Yeah.
By that time, they figured out the windward side because it was much more wet, it was much more conducive to expanding populations there. Then as that area filled in, people left and went to look for other places. That's what the archaeologists think. I also think that they're missing out a key point, and that is you had other arrivals coming from Kahiki. And so if they come and the choicest spots are taken, they're going to pick
Venture.
what's the next
Yeah.
choicest spots, right? So you probably have a mix of all of that coming together, right? And then as this society gets much more complex, then you have the battles for, because you had Eva, right? You had chiefs. There's enough oral history to know that there was chiefs that controlled Eva. Waianae and Wailua was part of Eva at that time. Those three basic kingdoms, Kona, Ko'olaupopo, and Eva. And we were part of Eva. And eventually those chiefs either acquiesce to one leader or there are battles. There's a whole series of history about that. And you get one mo'i of the island. And it continues from that point on.
Would you suggest that the system already incorporated for new arrivals? Under the, for new arrivals in the kingdom,
Oh yeah.
the existence of new arrivals or the coming of new arrivees into Hawaii was already planned.
I think with you know, chiefs like Kila, Moikaha, and Olopana doing trips back and forth, there certainly was, yeah, hey, get Aina, you guys like said, I'll come, right? And then in the particular case, like at Ku'ilioloa, where Lonoka Ehu was visiting Oahu and then offered the rule of the Big Island by Pa'ao, and he turned it down and went back to Tahiti to take care of his ancestral lands. And then they brought the other chief from Tahiti to replace the chief on Hawaii Island, right? And then that began that whole history of consolidation on Hawaii Island. Yeah.
Cool.
So it's really important. I mean, we had sturdy people that did sturdy things without machinery.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's impressive. Yeah, this is impressive. I mean, I've repaired things, and I've never built any structure this big, but just repairing a portion of a structure like this is hard work. It weighs on your back, and you know your sweat, and you got to eat, and you got to rest, and you got to start up again. So.
Are you definitely looking to like remove these
Yeah,
halikua eventually? Yeah.
we do. I think we just have to do it carefully.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And how you do it carefully is instead of cutting from the bottom and take a chance that the thing
Yeah.
uproot as it comes up, you cut top
Minor.
by section. Yeah. So as it falls one section at a time, it's not as heavy. It's not
Right.
as there's not as much leverage to deal with the
Right.
roots. Yeah.
Right.
So that to me that would be the plan that I would recommend for
Sure.
the holly cordage in the
Yeah.
going up out of the fall.
Yeah.
We don't like pull them out. I mean, you have machinery that can just grab it and pull it up.
Right.
But then
Yeah.
you move
No.
all
What?
around.
Everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the pink flags are where they kind of set a boundary where there is some native plants, right? Not necessarily endangered, but native plants. So that's why they ask us to stay down here and plant away from it.
That's a good reference, right?
Bear in mind, at the same time in the 12, 13, 1400s, we had the same thing happening around here.
Yeah, how about you, Jordan?
Yes, that became consolidated.
I wonder how far we're gonna go.
Right around. Around that point.
That is a family to Ilima. I don't think that's a native Ilima. The same with the red.
Oh no, you gotta get more than
Uncle, you want me to move back?
I know.
That looks
Good
The
eye.
yellow, like the Hawaii
No,
cotton.
no,
No,
no.
this is definitely
I think this one used to have it.
yeah, get a, eventually it gets big and get a cuckoo and a vat and one of them we have like this is part of the
Oh, that one has a pink thing.
it's right
This
around
is the
Notice
sea pond right
this,
here.
Yeah, sorry.
It's
I was looking as well, I was cutting.
What?
invasive one.
But yeah,
But you know, the birds, the wind brings it,
we want
right?
to
Yeah,
protect
yeah.
as much as we can.
So podium for now. Until you start landscaping. Okay, we need some ropes, right?
Yeah. I was gonna go.
Grab a tree. On the outside, yeah. Around.
It's coming from the sun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then when the rains come again, boom, they pop up. But it's this side that they think there are some additions on this side. So this side, if you look at McAllister's drawing, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And you know, we're lucky we had McAllister because he drew the,
What's your record of a lot of?
well, he drew the building plan that Kupuna used to rebuild there, right? They were fortunate to find the Niho stones.
Wow.
So once they found the Niho stones, they made the measurements, and it's pretty close. Without all of that, it'd be hard. I'll show you. When you came down that side over there, there's a piece of flat coral, but that's from the road. If you're in a secluded area like this and you see branches of finger coral, that's significant. Because that means somebody brought whole kupu from
Kai.
Makai. So finger coral, presence of finger coral is important. And what's more important is if there's enough of it now, with the technology we have today, it can date the coral.
carbon date.
Have you found one here? Have you found one here?
No, not yet. But I'm told that I think when they did earlier excavations, they may have found some. I don't know what happened to it, but that would be good to understand. Yeah.
Very important to look at rocks too.
Now look, even there you can see that how big it is. Right? That's a lot of rock.
Yeah. Because they're all, well, now they're smaller.
Likely not all built at once, but added to.
Double dog candy.
You gotta be careful, point.
On this side,
Here's a boat.
here, which was not part of the original.
This part?
Yeah, when I say pavement, I mean rock, flat rock, that kind of resembles level foundation. And I'm sure some of these walls are from inside. What's amazing about cows is they tend to walk in single formation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you get the first one knock over the rock and the
They're all going to knock
four more
off.
legs and here comes four more legs, that rock gets pushed further and further away. That's kind of this area is not part of the original drawings, which is why he wants to do more studies.
There we go.
Oh snap! Look at that.
What's worse, going down or going up?
Oh, going on, going down,
Yeah.
going down.
You want to get your steps, you can keep going up and down that side if you want.
Going. That's crazy. They made that whole pathway today.